Morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning. Welcome to week 4 of the semester. Week 4 of English 1010 is all about just basically completing your draft of Essay 1 and getting it submitted. Uh, this is, like I've sort of stressed, a two-part assignment. One is effective summary, the other is, thoughtful, connected responses. Um, and we've practiced that. You guys have had some, good discourse online, come up with some, interesting connections for sure. And now's the time to just put all that in essay form, to sit down and just think about the task of crafting an essay that fulfills this assignment. And to that end, there's a few things that we should talk about with regards to just sort of the overall essay. Um, the points of emphasis are pretty basic for this go round. I'm looking for just solid essay organization, which the entrance writing samples clearly demonstrate just about everybody is very comfortable with. One of the things that I stress in the outline are things about your thesis, your topic sentences, your concluding thoughts in your paragraphs, and just how important those things are to effective, cohesive flow of thought. Being able to walk your readers from one set of ideas to another, not just between paragraphs, but within individual paragraphs, and making sure that everything is coming across to them in the most accessible and easiest way. Bearing in mind that there's all those things that make writing engaging, which is the details. The many people confess to when they write, they kind of just like to get to the point, make it quickly, move on, and that's fair enough if the only goal of writing is to make quick points to demonstrate what you know or what you think. But the goal for both of our tasks, both summary and response, require a certain level of detail. Not too much, but enough for your readers to get a clear understanding, not only of what Wallace says, the points that he makes in his speech, and just the feel of the speech and the tone of his main ideas, but then also the tone of your own responses. Just having an agreement or disagreement is just the start. Now we've got the chance to think about why we have reacted the way that we have, and to be introspective in that regard, as opposed to combative. We'll be argumentative down the line, but being able to just let a person's ideas wash over you, and then evaluate your own knee-jerk reaction in relation to how does this new idea, or this differently stated, or just this idea, connect and jive with the things that I'm familiar with in the world, and not necessarily just resting on, well, because this is what I believe, or these are my values, but again, clearly stating that you understand why you have those values and why you have those beliefs. Obviously, you don't have to go completely overboard. You don't have to quote Wallace in depth. You don't have to spend as much time on each idea as he does. You don't need to go overboard with your connections. You don't need to tell long stories. Stories are fine. If you find yourself telling a long story, ask yourself if there's a way that you can get to the point quickly, more efficiently, more economically, perhaps. Details are necessary, but are these details in particular necessary? And so your overall sort of flow of thought, the cohesion of the essay, and all this is facilitated, again, by good topic sentences. Starting your paragraph by going, this is the main idea, whatever it is. And in this case, it can be very simple. The thesis statement of Wallace's essay can serve, or speech, can serve very effectively as the topic sentence for a summary paragraph on Wallace's speech. And then when it comes to your own response, you absolutely can start with a very kind of just broad and general, this is kind of how I took this in. And you can express that as just I like it, dislike it, agree, disagree. But, I find most people are more nuanced about this. I'll stress that you won't get a better grade just because you love the speech and agree with everything Wallace says. Some of the most entertaining and best essays are those that have like valid niggles with the things that he says, valid counterpoints to some of the very broad and generalized things that he says. So, other things that I'll stress are intro paragraphs and conclusion paragraphs. There are, patterns of introduction that usually, you think about when you try to figure out what kind of hook to give your intro paragraph. Most intro paragraphs don't just leap 2 feet first into the topic and say, in David Foster Wallace's speech, this is water, and then try to build from there. Most good, engaging intro paragraphs and argumentative writing generally will start with a bit of a broad opening that may, be tangentially related or provide more context or give a little bit of background history or, play games with the audience. Sometimes intros will set up an idea that is the opposite of the one that is intended to, be addressed, or they will tell an engaging anecdote for the sake of setting up the topic in a way that gets the audience thinking. Some people will quote a famous person. If you're going to go the famous person quote route, that quote probably should be someone other than the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and probably somebody that we know by name, generally speaking. Just some random author or speaker or YouTube presenter or whatever, won't be as effective in quoting as somebody that most people would understand and that, they see has a relevance to the topic. Last thing I'll suggest is quoting. Be very extra careful with how you use quotes. There wasn't a call to use any quotes for the most part, although some did for emphasis in your entrance writing samples. But I want to stress the importance of being careful with how you integrate Wallace's ideas into the flow of your own thoughts. Whether you're summarizing him and want to provide a little bit of a quote to illustrate what he says or to unpack an idea, or because Wallace says something in just the right way and you want to get that across, or whether you're quoting him in your response section for the sake of leaping off from that and making connections to that moment or, to a broader idea. Quoting is not difficult, but it is kind of tedious. On the one hand, you have to be very careful to make sure that the words you are borrowing fit with the words that are expressing your own ideas. You have to really be paying attention that you're quoting not just the right moment, but the right amount of that moment. It's not ever really in this essay going to be necessary for you to quote long sentences or full paragraphs of David Foster Wallace's speech. It's a classic way of buffing out a paper that isn't very long. So more often than not, you may just borrow a word or phrase. There's tons of little coined phrases that Wallace, says, like, natural default setting or the real noble value of education, or day in, day out, the kind of key ideas that he comes back to a lot that aren't even full thoughts, but you might quote those in your own way. So I will draw your attention to our textbook, the only textbook, the Little Seagull Handbook. If it's backwards in the video, I apologize, but you'll want to pay particular attention to page 144, which is where the section on quoting begins. If you're at all iffy about how to punctuate a quote that you're not citing, or whether or not you need a comma when you're just quoting a couple of words, or looking for more ways to set up a quote besides saying just Wallace says, section R4B in your textbook that begins on page 144 is the section on quoting. It covers all different ways that you can quote and use quotes and throw them in. You don't need to get too fancy with it, but feel free to make use of Wallace's text however you see fit. You will also need a works cited page. The only source that you need to cite is Wallace's speech. It's the only source, unless you pull in something for the sake of talking about a text-to-text connection. But in that case, I will draw your attention to page 156, whereon begins the MLA style guide in the Little Seagull Handbook. If you haven't gotten this textbook, you can find MLA style guides online for free. But it's up to you to figure out how to do this. But all you really need to do is turn to the MLA style guide and look at the model for, I believe it's item number 48 in your textbook, which appears on page, 195. It's about how to cite an oral presentation, because Wallace's text is a speech. Oral presentation is the most appropriate format for citing, so your works cited page should be at least one entry long and include the citation for Wallace. Beyond that, if there's anything that you have questions about with regards to the execution of this essay, please let me know. I posted feedback for the entrance writing sample last night. Feedback is very broad, but I do kind of point to general notions of what you do well and what we might want to focus on. So if there's any questions you have about that feedback, or you want to discuss that feedback prior to trying to write this essay, please let me know. Shoot me an email. That'll be great. Otherwise, the only work this week is writing essay 1. So the prompt is online. Everything is linked in the announcements page on the course. So have fun, write hard, enjoy this task. You are writing about yourself, and if you can't be engaged in writing about yourself, sort of, kind of, and it's college. If you can't be engaged in writing about college, why are you here? Anyway, I love you all. Enjoy the rest of your week. Write hard. I will enjoy reading your essay starting next week. Let me know if I can help. Oh, perfect timing.